Hello. Today, we're talking about minimalism. That was a minimal opening. I cracked myself. Howdy ho, all y'all. Today, we are talking about minimalism and specifically how it pertains to living in one of these bad boys, a school bus. This is part one of what eventually will be a two-part video. This is the pre-video because I am living in Earl, but he's not done. So I don't really know what it's like to have the stuff that I've kept in Earl. But I do know what it was like to downsize. I have 6 tips, that many tips, that helped me figure out what to keep, what to get rid of, and so far so good. My process happened in 2 phases. Number 1, I moved out of my apartment in California, and at that point I got rid of 70% of my belongings, if not more. Like, I got rid of almost everything. But I did put a few things, I thought, just a few things which I could not possibly part with in a storage unit in California. And the plan was once Earl was done, once I meandered through, I would just grab these minimal items from this storage unit. It was a small storage unit, tiny. It was just a closet, like not even a wide closet. It was just a closet. So it really was not a bunch of stuff, but I just recently went back to California to sort through it because Earl's taking way longer than expected, and I was paying $60 a month for this storage unit, and that's just absurd. So I was in Utah for a few months, and I took that opportunity to go to San Francisco, where I was living, and clean out my storage unit. Oh my gosh, hey guys. Leroy and I here. We are in a storage facility in Concord, California. Concord, it's called, not Concord. Hey, buddy. We are in Concord. I lived here briefly before I started this whole bus thing, and I had a closet of stuff. There was no way I could live without this stuff. I got rid of everything, but this was the stuff I just couldn't get rid of. Just a little bit of stuff. But I have to clean this out. I haven't needed any of this. That's not true. I've needed a couple things. Other than 2 things, I haven't needed any of this stuff, and there's some stuff. Like, there's some stuff. I just found these bad boys. I know, super creepy. I don't know, I found those heads one time in college and I thought that I needed to, actually it might have been in high school, I don't remember. I thought I needed to buy them and paint them. I'm not a painter, like I'm not a visual artist, but I felt like that's what needed to happen. My friends all hate them, they're a huge inside joke, but it's time for them to go. It's time for so much of this stuff to go. The thing is, you know what, in a school bus you can't have all this crap. You just can't have, you can't have all these board games. You can't have your vintage Nintendo games. You just can't. You can't have it. Or you can't have the kitty cats that go over the doors that my best friend's grandpa made for me. You just can't keep this stuff, guys. Oh, I can keep this. This is like what my family says. Anytime someone says, love you, I always say, me more, I love you more. So let's get this stuff, guys. Let's do this. The first tip I have is to really identify what is important to you. What things can you not live without? What things do you want? What things do you need? And you really have to be really serious with yourself, because there's a lot of things I thought I needed that I didn't. And the first round, when I was moving out of my apartment, I thought I did an amazing job of getting rid of stuff. I mean, I did. I got rid of at least 70% of my belongings, if not more. So I did do a good job of getting rid of stuff, but it was interesting when I went to clean out the storage unit because there was still a ton of stuff that I didn't need. So really identify what is most important to you, what has sentimental value, and what items you absolutely cannot live without. Suggestion number 2 is to go paperless. And I don't only mean, of course, bills, all of that stuff. If you can go paperless, getting your mail on the road is, I haven't done it yet, but it's not super easy to handle. I mean, sure, you can pay a company to handle your mail, it's fine, but it's not perfect. So if you can reduce your mail as much as possible, why not? But what I mean by going paperless is this. I had tons of items that I realized that I was only keeping because I didn't want to forget that they existed. I didn't want to forget the memories that were attached to these items. And somebody mentioned, well, why don't you just take photos of all the stuff? Like that bike that you're obsessed with, that you rode all over New York City while you lived there for years, named Franklin, bright orange, vintage, Fuji. He was amazing. He is still amazing wherever he is. But one of my friends was like, you haven't ridden him since you moved away from New York. Just take some good photos of him and get rid of him. Like, he's huge. Get him out of there. And they were right. So if you can go paperless with memories as well, why not? Also, media. I had so many movies and so many CDs, and I have held on to them since college. And now we're in a place where all of the CDs that I was holding on to that, I had paid money for, I wasn't going to let go of these. I mean, now I with a Apple Music or Spotify subscription, I have access to all of them for, relatively, I don't know, it's not much. It's get rid of them. If you're living in a school bus, get rid of the CDs, get rid of the movies. I think all of the movies I got rid of are on Netflix. Like, go paperless and digital as much as possible. And then there are like the hyper emotional things that I just have to get rid of, like this fog machine. Tip number 3 is to identify disposable items. What items are you holding on to that are inexpensive and that you use incredibly infrequently, that at the end of the day, if you are living in a small space like a school bus or a tiny home, what items could you purchase the next time you need them in a year and a half or 3 years, that would, what's that price threshold that makes it more advantageous to just get rid of it for now until you need another one? Now, I'm not rolling in it, so I'm not advocating that you just trash everything and just buy new things when you need them. But for instance, cables, charger cables, HDMI cables. I had a huge box of cables, and I realized that half of them, I didn't even know what they belonged to. I didn't even know what they were used for. And then I had things like HDMI cables, which I don't have a TV. I don't expect to have a TV anytime super soon. And I realized that almost all of those cables could be purchased if I needed them for a really nominal price. And the maybe $10 that I might have to pay for a couple cords over the next few years, that's worth me not having to store and lug around a box of cables. Okay, next box, what's in here? Oh, jeez. Okay, it's fine. It's all stuff that I need. No, let me take that back. Stuff that I want and will actually use. For one, it's in my grandma's KitchenAid mixer. Still works. We still have all the attachments. I love that. I love that. And my tent, $400 tent. So, it's stuff I need. Oh, and the snowman that goes on the back of the toilet at Christmas.
Ho, 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 who's gotta go? Ho, 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 who's gotta go? Here in the bathroom, don't mind me. I'm here to keep you company.
My mom gave me that.
What you doing? On second thought, never mind. Pull up a seat and make yourself comfy.
Yeah,
If you need any presents wrapped, I've got...
my mom mom gave me that, so I can't get rid of that. It has a motion detector, so it knows when you sit down on the toilet. Tip number 4 is... Oh, what is it? Oh, what is it? I know what it is. So you can definitely sell your items, and that's awesome because you can bring in some cash that helps soothe your emotional pains from having to give up these items. But an even better option is giving them away. If you can give them to someone you know, it's so much easier, especially the more emotionally attached items like furniture. Like I had, coffee table that I was so attached to. I'd had it forever. It was a piece of junk. There was no point in keeping it, but it really bothered me because I had so many memories attached to the living room where that coffee table had been, and I was able to give it to a friend. And so I know that they have it. I know that it helps. It made it easier to get rid of. And there were a number of items like that. My bed, my sofa, my kitchen table. Not that I was emotionally attached to all of those things, but it certainly made it easier to get rid of them, knowing that they were going to someone who I knew and someone who was going to get use of them. They weren't just going into the dumpster or, to Salvation Army. All right, this is the last box. I'm going through it. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but I have a lot of stuff to fit in my car. It's getting hot. It's hot up here in California. Tip number 5, it is okay to put things in storage. It's okay if there are things that you feel like you can't live without. You don't need them currently, actively in your bus, in your tiny home, in your RV, wherever you are living. But you do need and want to keep them. I have tons of those items. I have a terrible memory, a really, really bad memory. And it is so fun for me to go through these old boxes of stuff and see all of these items because they conjure up all of these memories that I'm a little terrified that I would never remember if I hadn't seen the item and it hadn't, brought back that memory, and then that memory brought back another memory. I'm very nostalgic. I have had wonderful life experiences up to this point, and so I love having items that spur those types of memories. So it is okay to keep stuff, but I do suggest keeping it in check. I do suggest keeping a storage size or setting a storage size limit in advance and knowing that that is your limit. For instance, I found literally the very smallest storage space in the Bay Area. I found it in Concord, California. It was $60 and it was the smallest of closets. I mean, you've seen it. And that was my limit. And it was actually only half full. I mean, top to bottom. I mean, it had enough stuff in it. But it was really nice to set that limit for myself and know that that's it. Like there's no going over that. So set limits for yourself.
I mean, the thing is, I just think you're such a jerk. Why were you such a jerk? Why'd you run away? Are things not good enough for you here? Is all the free food and bones not enough? I've never felt so unappreciated. You didn't just wander away. Like, you ran away in a sprint. Like, just a straight line. You've got some explaining to do.
And my very last tip, and I would argue the most useful tip for myself and likely for you, is to give it some time. It is amazing what the 7-8 months between when I moved out of my apartment and kept those belongings and put them in storage. It's amazing what the time between then and now, when I'm going through the storage unit, it's amazing what that time did for well, it made me realize that a lot of the things that 8 months ago I thought I couldn't live without, I could. I was able to downsize again. And so I'm sure, it didn't bring much back with me, a car full. a very full car of belongings. But I am confident that if I go through that stuff in 6 more months, I'll be able to cut it in half again. Maybe not half, but I know that I'll be able to pare some more stuff out of it. Maybe you don't have the luxury of that time, but if you do have the luxury of that time, if you are thinking about living in a school bus or a tiny house or an RV full time, or if you're just planning to downsize, start right now. Start, pick a room, go through it, and start downsizing now, because in 6 months from now, you'll be able to downsize even more. And it's so much easier to downsize in phases. And I didn't know this before I did it, but this last trip to clean out this storage unit gave me that huge realization. And I am really, well, while I wish that Earl had taken the 6 months that I thought he was going to take to build, I'm really lucky that we're so far behind, because that extra time really helped me be able to get rid of a lot more stuff than I would have otherwise. Okay guys, sorry I got distracted, but things got a little stressful, but I'm almost done. This is absurd, you guys. This is not minimalism. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there. I got rid of so much stuff. This is literally 1/3 of what was in my storage unit. And when I moved out of my apartment here and into the storage unit, I got rid of like 70% of my belongings, maybe more. So, it's hard. It's hard to know. It's hard to identify what is, like, what's important and what isn't. And there's so many different types of important. And so it's hard. And, do it in phases is good. I think it's, if you have the time, a lot of people who are moving from a house like into an RV full time or something like that, or into a tiny house, they'll spend like months, if not a year, like slowly purging, because it really is a process. And it's interesting, everything I put in here, I thought I needed. Like, I put it in the storage unit because I wanted to keep it, and I thought I really needed it. And as it turns out, a year later, I haven't needed any of it. Well, there are 2 things: my headlamp, and what else? I don't remember. Something else I did want, but it wasn't a big deal. And so, sometimes you have to be removed from your belongings, I think, to figure out whether you really need them or not. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't need any of this. No. There might be a couple things that I need, but I don't need any of this. Like, that little white bag in there. So that is a vintage Tupperware picnic basket and kit. It's like awesome. It's so cool. Like, it was still new. And it was not cheap. So I have it. I've kept it. I might get into Earl. I mean, I think I'm going to do some picnicking in Earl, some entertaining outdoors. So I'm keeping it. But honestly, there's a good chance, like 6 months, a year into Earl, maybe faster, I'll probably be like, why did I keep that? But I'm progressing. It's part of the process of paring down your belongings. And so, you know what? I'm almost ready to live in a school bus. Not quite. Still got too much junk, but we're getting there. Okay, I'm rambling. Bye. Oh, hi. I couldn't help but overhear you saying how desperate you were to watch more YouTube videos. Well, you can. Subscribe here. You won't miss a thing. Or watch my film, Once Is Enough, right here. Or just click here. Watch another video.